Well, hello again. Welcome. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan here on 1017 FM and 710 Keel, and I am joined. Oh, she's really looking sparkly today.
Super sparkle.
Got her Chester Cat smile on because she's going on vacation.
Woohoo!
PLPC Carla McCormick.
Hi, boys.
How you doing?
I am pretty okay.
Well, that's good. You said boys, so we'll bring in Rapid Ruben Wright, the ace of the airways. Our ace producer keeps us high, low, flying in between, never hits turbulence. Yeah. How you doing, Ruben?
I am doing excellent. Good evening, everybody.
Now, you remember a couple of, it's just been a couple of weeks ago, and you were in the same place
On vacation.
Yeah. You are you green with envy? You know,
I'm more happy for her, but also, yes, I wish I was back on the mountains a little bit.
There you go.
The mountains are calling, and I must go.
Right. Well, that sounds rather optimistic to me.
I would like to think of myself as an optimist.
A lot of us would, but when we are pragmatic about it, realistic about it, many of us aren't. So, how does a pragmatist get to be an optimist?
Well, first you have to tell me what a pragmatist is.
Well, pragmatism is, I kind of think of it as putting one foot in front of another. Just getting it done. The realism of getting it done. The dictionary says it's a person who's guided more by practical considerations than by ideals.
So don't give me a bunch of theories. Just tell me how to do it.
Yeah, give me some realistic ways that I can increase my optimism. If optimism increases resilience and it helps me overcome life's greater challenges, okay, how do I do that? That's what we want to talk about today. We're going to be excerpting freely from a book called Resilience, the Science of Mastering Life's Greatest Challenges. It's in its second edition. It's by Stephen Southwick and Dennis Charney, published by Cambridge University Press. So we'll give them the credit that is due them right at the top of the program. So we're going to talk from a very pragmatic way. How do you increase your optimism today? You up for that?
I'm up for it.
All right. Folks, thank you. Hope you're up for this. Strategies for Living is presented by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Of course, they've been helping individuals and families for 60 years now. And if you check out CADA, you don't have to leave home for treatment. Check them out, CADANWLA.org. And if you do that, you might even get this sound of Marsha in your head. We'll talk about that more later. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. And we will be back to pragmatically guide us to optimism today on Strategies. If we're talking addiction prevention, education, and treatment in Shreveport-Bossier for 60 years, we're talking about CADA. Let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about getting your life back. The Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, CADA, has been helping individuals and families in Shreveport and Bossier City for 60 years now. CADA provides intensive residential treatment as well as outpatient services too. CADA treats women with children, pregnant women, adolescents, veterans. CADA has helped thousands and thousands of people in North Louisiana from just about every race and ethnic background, every socioeconomic
how it's happened, living life by the drop.
Welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick and marriage and family therapist David McMillan. We are talking today about how a realistic sense of optimism increases resilience, helps you overcome life's greatest challenges. I'll tell you a story here, Carla. Deborah Gruen's difficulties began really at birth. She was born in 1987. Her father had just been appointed an assistant professor of neonatology at Yale Medical Center. Jeff Gruen was happily married to Susan, who had been accepted to law school. They had one healthy daughter, Michelle. They had no reason to expect anything but a healthy infant. But when Deborah emerged, it wasn't to be so. She had a large lipoma, a fatty tumor at the size, it was the size of a grapefruit at the base of her spine. She had normal anatomy, but she didn't have normal posture from the waist down. There was some movement of her legs, but her vertebrae were malformed. Some were impinging on the spinal cord. Deborah had a surgery in the aftermath of her birth, and then 4 more over the next 5 years. These procedures helped stabilize her spine, but she never crawled. She dragged herself across the floor, used a walker. When she was in preschool, one of Susan's friends invited her to swim at a swim club. Susan reluctantly agreed. She was apprehensive about how club members would respond to Deborah, who was able to walk only with the aid of a pair of bright pink crutches. But the invitation turned out to be lucky. Deborah continued to swim, and at age 16 traveled to Athens to compete in the Summer Paralympic Games, where she won the bronze medal in the 100-meter breaststroke. Deborah went on to become high school valedictorian, attend college at Yale, graduated graduate school from Georgetown University School of Law. Emerging from such a rough beginning, living with such a severe lifelong disability, how is somebody like Deborah, how has she succeeded in so many areas of her life? Now, of course, it's not just one simple answer. Never is, right?
Right.
But her parents never gave up hope. They provided unconditional love and support. They treated Deborah like any able-bodied child, and they expected others to do the same. But perhaps most important, Deborah was and remains an optimist. I'm quoting, she is mentally tough, according to her sister Michelle. Optimism, that's a future-oriented attitude, a confidence that things are going to turn out okay. Things are going to turn out better than okay. Things are going to turn out well. Optimists believe good things are going to happen to them, and that with enough hard work, they'll succeed. Pessimists, on the other hand, see the future as dim. They believe that bad things will happen to them, and they doubt that they have the skills to sustain and achieve their goals, the stamina to do so. So psychologists have identified 2 styles of optimism. Dispositional optimism, like that displayed by Deborah, which pervades the individual's outlook from one situation to another, and something called situational optimism, where an individual may be hopeful in one set of circumstances, but maybe not in another. Which one would you categorize yourself in?
These days?
Yeah.
I think that I'm probably, I have a dispositional optimism.
I would agree.
I kind of see the world as good.
Yeah, I would agree. So we want to talk this evening about realistic optimism. Contrary to the popular belief, optimism is not, blindly ignoring life's problems. Hey, everything is great. It's going to be a great day.
Right.
It's not that. We kind of think that sometimes. Sometimes optimists get an unfair break, I think. Optimism is not, I repeat, is not seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. So I mentioned this book, The Resilience Factor, right?
Right.
So Karen Revick and Andrew Satter refer to realistic optimism. As do pessimists, realistic optimists pay close attention to negative information that is relevant to any problem that they face. But unlike pessimists, they don't focus. They don't remain focused on the negative. They tend to disengage rapidly from problems that appear to be unsolvable, and they know when to cut their losses, turn their attention to solvable problems. You know, this reminds me, I talk a lot in the counseling room when I'm working with couples about getting real with problems, because when we think about problems, we a lot of times we just think about, oh God, I got all of this on me. And if you think about it, there's two types of problems that any couple, well, any of us really have, that we have to navigate through, and it's helpful to sort them out. We have solvable problems and we have perpetual problems. You think about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was taught that, growing up, I was taught that we have good problems and we have bad problems.
Okay.
And so in my family, a good problem was
something that could be
the
solved.
carpet wore out in my office.
Yeah.
And I have to change it, but that's good because I had so many people walking on it and had so many patients coming in, it wore the carpet out.
There you go.
I have to pay taxes and I owe more than I expected.
That's a good thing.
Because I made more money.
Yeah.
Those would be good problems. They're still problems, and I still have to solve them, but they're good problems.
All right, so those are good examples of solvable problems.
Okay.
But then there's this thing called perpetual problems, and I think it's healthy. For instance, in most couples, you find personality differences, almost exact opposites, a lot of the cases, right?
Right.
All right, so that's a perpetual problem. If one is what I call an implementer, a person of action, fire, ready, aim, and the other is a processor. I want to understand things. I want to be able to understand, get my arms around it. I want to figure out the why of things. It's kind of be like fire and water, because sometimes the processor is going to feel burnt, and sometimes the implementer is going to feel doused,
yes,
if you will. That's a perpetual problem that you can't solve because you're just not going to magically change your personality, but you can manage that. And so solvable, it's good to sort out what's our solvable problems, what's our perpetual problems, because the perpetual problems have to be managed. Obviously, solvable problems
can be solved.
Now, we may have to figure out, okay, how are we going to go about doing that? What's our plan? But they can still be solved. So Sandra Snyder, who is a psychologist at the University of South Florida, suggests that realistic optimism is qualitatively different from the blind variety. A realistic outlook improves chances to negotiate the environment successfully, whereas an optimistic outlook places priority on feeling good. But are realistic and optimistic outlooks necessarily in conflict? We're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about that, because we're considering a guide to optimism from a pragmatic approach today. We're going to come back and we're also going to tell you some ways that you can be more optimistic.
I like that.
All right. More strategies for living as we focus on how to increase optimism today. We'll even tell you how to be positive when bad things happen. That's ahead, too.
Hey, little thing, let me light your candle, 'cause mama, I'm sure all the
welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC Carla McCormick, and we are here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL talking about how to be more optimistic in a pragmatic way, right? We're being realistic today.
So most realists I know are not optimists.
Well, but the question begs: are realistic and optimistic outlooks are they necessarily in conflict with one another?
I don't believe that they are. I think I can be an optimist and a realist at the same time.
There are certainly optimistic biases that do involve self-deception or convincing yourself of desired beliefs without the appropriate reality checks. It's not hard to see how excessive or unrealistic optimism can be detrimental, or it can even be dangerous, right?
Yes.
That's noted by Justin Kruger and David Dunning at Cornell University. Tends to lead to an underestimation of risk, an overestimation of ability, and an inadequate preparation. For an individual confronted with a major trauma, like being shot down and taken prisoner, being blindly optimistic could easily be the last mistake that he or she would ever make. Yeah. But the tools of realistic optimism can increase resilience, and they can enhance success in your life. Barbara Fredrickson, who is a psychologist at the University of North Carolina, has developed what she calls the broaden and build model of positive emotions. Fredrickson observes that positive emotions have been shown to reduce physiological arousal and to broaden our visual focus, our thoughts, and our behavior. When people experience positive emotions and an accompanying broadening of attention and behavior, their thinking tends to become more creative, inclusive, flexible, and integrative. Experiments have shown that inducing a positive mood, for example, by showing participants a funny movie or reading a funny story to them, increases people's ability to solve problems and their interest in socializing and in strenuous as well as leisurely activities. So when optimists broaden their attention, they increase their capacity to positively reappraise situations that initially appear to be negative. So let's talk about some ways to be more optimistic, Carla.
Okay.
These are proven strategies. We are, after all, strategies for living. You can give them a try. You can give these strategies a try, and hopefully you'll become someone who sees the glass as half full instead of half empty. And if many of us are not born optimists, right? We didn't inherit some optimism gene. So is it possible for us to be optimistic?
Yes.
Okay.
I can say that I didn't.
Carla says yes.
I wasn't always optimistic.
There you go.
At some point, I decided that was the way I wanted to live and the way I wanted to see the world. So I made a decision.
The power of, again, we talk about this a lot. The power of a choice and a decision, and whether you're talking about optimism, whether you're talking about forgiveness, whether you're talking about lightening up on the self, boy, that can be a powerful strategy.
And you talk about those times that you kind of those moments in time that kind of stick with you, and I can vividly remember hearing the quote, "To be responsible for the energy I bring to a room."
Ooh, yeah, take responsibility for the energy that you bring in the room.
And that spoke to me at that time,
Yeah.
because I think I had spent a lot of time walking into places and into rooms with negative energy because I wanted other people to know how I felt.
Yeah.
It was important for them to know I was upset or I was angry.
Yeah.
And so I would bring this negative energy in with me. And I decided that I was going to change that. And the way that I knew how to change that was to start to be positive.
There you go. All right, so some ways that you can increase optimism. We'll throw out 4 of them right now.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get to more later. Number 1, focus your attention on whatever positive things that there are around you. Focus your attention on
Would that be
the positive.
gratitudes?
Yeah, I think it could be gratitude, but I'm thinking more along the lines of our brain
Okay.
and the reticular activating system in the brain. It kind of focuses. It does focus. It's like the viewfinder in a camera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like what you choose to focus on expands within your mind because of the reticular activating system. So focus your attention. Do this intentionally. Focus your attention on anything positive that you can find around you. You know, you can always find something, right?
If you pay attention.
If you pay attention.
If you pay attention, you see the butterflies. If
Yeah.
you pay attention, you see the beautiful sunset. You see the moon.
Yeah.
You feel the warmth on your face.
Yeah. So this is intentional.
Yes.
This is intentional. Focus on the positive things around you. Number 2, intentionally think positive thoughts, and intentionally do not dwell. Don't let your mind stay on the negative thoughts.
I talk about this a lot in my counseling room
Do ya?
about not being able to control the thoughts that come into our mind, but controlling how long I let them sit there and stay.
Yeah.
And whether I have them on repeat, whether I, embellish them and play them in color and add to them, or whether I, some people call it change the channel.
Yeah.
And move on to the next thought. For me to change the channel, I have to usually do something that takes an action.
Yeah. Yeah. But remember, we've got the 3 things that we've got. We've got thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And many times, the behavior's the great place to begin because any one point affects the other points, right? It's like a 3-legged stool.
Right.
So feelings follow behavior. In recovery, in the 12-step movement, there's a lot of sayings that they have that indicate this. Keep coming back. Fake it till you make it.
Move
Act
a muscle,
as if.
change your mind.
Move a muscle, change your mind. There you go. But it's all saying the same thing. And I tell you, it works.
It does work.
It works.
So those thoughts come into my mind. I can't tell myself, don't think it, don't think it, don't think it. But I can sure get up and go empty the dishwasher.
Absolutely.
I can sure get up and go, play with the dogs. I can get that thought out of my head.
Absolutely. Number 3, and we talk about this. You got taught this in your techniques of counseling, reframing. Yeah. Have you ever had a picture that you've taken off the wall? It's an old dingy picture, and you say, I got to take this back to the frame shop. I got to do something with this, and you take it down, and you take it, and maybe you spend $100, and you get a new frame, and you get a new matting around it, and you bring it back, and you hang it back in its old place, and it looks like, wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's the same picture, and all you did was reframe it. So reframe. Take the negative and reframe it. Interpret events in a more positive light. We all have bad stuff that is going to happen to us, right? That's just life.
Yes.
Yeah. We all go through breakups, divorces. We all go through tragedies. We all go through, losses of money, jobs, security, friendships, on and on and on, right?
Yes.
All right. But we can choose, again, what happens after I go through a divorce? Well, I might have to grieve for a little while, but wow, many times on the other side, I'm so glad now that I went through that, right? Yeah. It's hard to remember that in the moment, but it's important in this step to say, okay, well, let me reframe it. Even if I'm not feeling it right now, the possibility exists there's some things coming that I don't know, you know.
Well, and it can even be something as is I hate that happened, and that really stinks that I had to go through that.
Yeah.
But here's what I learned from it,
Yeah.
and here's who I am now because of it.
Yeah. There you
So,
go.
I don't think that bad things happen to us to teach us a lesson, or that, that bad things happen on purpose. But I do feel like when bad things do happen,
We have choices.
and I can choose to move forward and figure out what the lesson was.
There you go.
And
that's part of reframing.
Exactly.
So reframe the negative and interpret any events that you need to interpret in a more positive light. Fourth and finally, behave and take action in ways that build positive feelings. Again, this goes right back to something we were talking about just a second ago. Feelings follow behavior, right?
Well, and I think that's why when we talk about recovery, the recovery model, one of the steps is giving back and helping others. Now that you know this, and now that you've learned this, go share it. Because I think one of the ways that you get out of self, and one of the ways you stop feeling sorry for yourself, is to go do something, volunteer or do something good for other people. I think that's how one of the quickest and easy ways to build a positive feeling within yourself.
I was mentioning a moment ago that Dr. Fredrickson, observes that, again, from a brain point of view, that positive emotions have been shown to reduce physiological arousal and to broaden our visual focus, our thoughts, and our behavior. When people experience positive emotions and an accompanying broadening of attention and behavior, their thinking tends to be more creative, more inclusive, more flexible, more integrative. That's pretty good. That's pretty doggone good, don't you think?
Well, yes. I mean, and I like it. I look at the people that I admire, and I look at how they live their lives and the things that they do. Not that they're perfect, and not that I want to be them. And most of those people are givers. They're involved in the community. They give back. They do things for other people. They find ways to get out of themselves and to give back. And so, there's got to be something to that.
Deborah is an expert at positive reappraisal. She received her early acceptance letter from Yale. She was ecstatic. In the midst of her excitement, she noticed a website that posted profiles of the applicants who had accepted early admission at Yale. And then she began to feel, guess what, intimidated, because she was comparing her. So she was looking at their levels of accomplishment, and
Right.
I don't belong here.
Am I smart enough to be here?
But soon she reappraised the situation. She started to think about how interesting her new classmates were going to be.
Oh, that's a good reframe.
Yeah, isn't that a great reframe? So how interesting it would be for her to get to know all of these new people. How much fun she would have in getting to know each one of these new people for the first time. That's a great example of a reframe. Yeah. We're talking about how to increase your optimism today on Strategies for Living in a pragmatic way, of course. When we come back, we've already said bad things are going to happen. We live in the world, right?
Right.
And so how do we stay positive when something bad happens? Because that's inevitable. If we're going to be pragmatic, we got to do that.
How do you stay positive when bad things happen to good people?
There you go. That's ahead here on Strategies for Living. I bet you see trouble on the way. I knew it. I just knew it. Welcome back.
No trouble coming.
Yeah. Welcome back into Strategies for Living, 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. And PLPC Carla McCormick, who has another 17 minutes she has to work. Don't we feel sorry for her?
Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
But you're optimistic about it.
I am so optimistic
Pragmatically so.
Forget the pragmatism. I'm just going for it all the way. Pure D, unadulterated optimism.
Ruben and I cannot blame you. But we are talking about a pragmatist guide to optimism today here on Strategies for Living. So, all right, we live in this world, and there's everybody in it between Mother Teresa and Jeffrey Dahmer. And maybe there's more on the Jeffrey Dahmer end, at least sometimes I think there might be, than the Mother Teresa end. So bad things are going to happen, right?
Yes.
So how do we stay positive? Again, I think this is an important part of this pragmatic approach. If we want to, how do we stay positive when the inevitable bad things happen to us?
I think that you do exactly what we said. You find the light in the darkness. You find the good.
Yeah.
And you realize that even though it seems like what you said, that sometimes the bad outweighs the good, that's really not the reality.
Yeah.
The reality is that the good far outweighs the bad.
Absolutely.
We just kind of lose focus of that sometimes.
I think we have to figure out a way to remember, to remind ourselves, especially when these difficulties come, that nothing lasts forever.
Even the bad stuff.
Even the bad stuff. Difficulties won't last forever. I can break down and decide to do a one day at a time approach. And though now maybe, a lot of pain, good things will over time return. So I think we have to remember that. That is one way to be positive when bad things happen. It's intentional.
You will feel joy again.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to be sad. I think what scares me sometimes is the people who in their sadness and in their sorrow lose hope.
Yeah.
And I think that reminding themselves of just what you said, that this is just a season.
Yeah.
I may always miss this person. I may always have a pain, but I will feel joy again.
I can feel and will feel joy again. Okay, so whatever the adverse situation, keep that event or keep that within its limits. Brackets, on the keyboard, you've got brackets. Well, you can bracket things. So keep especially adverse situations with brackets. Don't let it pervade all the other areas of your life.
I put it in a box, and I put the box in the top of the closet.
Okay.
And it's there. I always know it's there.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'll take it down and I'll open it up and I'll roll
Sometimes
around it.
Sometimes you just need a good cry,
and
right?
I'll feel sorry for myself.
Yep.
And then I'll put it back and then I'll tuck it away back up neatly in the top of the closet. So it's there. It never goes away.
Yeah. Okay.
But you move on.
Think of strengths and resources that you can use to help you deal with whatever the problem is. This may even be good to write it down. Strengths and resources. What have I got in me that I can acknowledge, that I can see? This may even be good to write down.
Yeah.
Put it on paper. And then finally, notice what's good. For instance, acts of kindness by maybe people who recognize that you're in a struggle. Sometimes people don't know what we're going through, but they can see that we're going through something.
Right.
They can sense it. Some people sense energy or more, empathic than others. And so they may reach out and do kind acts for us. Make it a point to notice that and focus on that. Again, back to the brain to the reticular activating system, right?
Doing the things that make you feel good.
So optimism has a lot of, well, it has widespread implications, not just for our mental health, Carla, but for our physical health too. There's been a lot of scientific studies that show that optimists tend to be more satisfied with their lives. They feel psychologically healthier. They display greater physical well-being than people who are not.
Well, think about the people you want to hang around. Do you want to hang around the negative Nellies and the womp people?
No.
I mean, and I don't even just mean, sexually attracted to, but the people that you're attracted to as people. You're attracted to the positive people, the people who smile and seem to have joy in their lives. They're not perfect people.
Yeah.
They don't not make a mistake, but they're the people who other people want to be around.
Not to bring a downer in, but let's focus on women with breast cancer. Let's focus on cardiac patients who are recovering from open heart surgery. In one study, heart transplant patients with positive expectations before surgery were found to be in better physical health after the surgery than patients without positive expectations. Greater optimism was also associated with less pain and fewer post-operative symptoms in patients undergoing coronary bypass surgery. Several classic research investigations have reported that optimists live longer. They may live longer than pessimists. In a remarkable study involving handwritten autobiographies by 180 nuns from the Sisters of Notre Dame in Milwaukee, Deborah Danner and colleagues at the University of Kentucky examined the relationships between signs of good cheer and optimism and subsequent length of life. Of all the traits expressed in those autobiographies, only optimism tracked longer lifespans decades after the entries had been made. Now that's pretty powerful.
Well, and all of the research, all of the science, I mean, there's tons of metadata out there that tell us all of those things. People that are positive heal faster, they live longer, their quality of life is better. They, everything. There's no downside for looking at the sunny side of life.
And is it possible that optimism protects against some of the negative effects of stress? For example, in a study of Israeli citizens who were exposed to, remember the Scud missiles back in the 90s? The Scud missile attacks during the Gulf War back in 1991. Optimists developed fewer stress-related illnesses like PTSD and depression, and they used fewer medical services than pessimists. Over the longer term, a 2015 study of former Vietnam POWs found that optimism was the strongest predictor of psychological health. It's even possible that optimists have increased immunity to infectious disease. There was a fascinating study conducted by Sheldon Cohen, professor of psychology at Carnegie Mellon University. Study subjects were required for a week to live in a hotel where they ate only what they were served by the research staff, were not permitted to leave, and did not have close physical contact with other research participants. On the first day of the experiment, all participants were infected with a cold virus. Fewer participants assessed as having higher positive emotions developed colds. Those who did have had fewer runny noses, less sneezing and congestion, and less mucus. So in short, realistic optimism is a component of resilience. In fact, during an interview with a Special Forces instructor, we asked whether his soldiers tended to be pessimistic or optimistic. He said, quote, "Definitely optimistic. We can't afford to have a really negative pessimist on one of our teams because pessimism is infectious and it brings everybody down. It's pretty simple, really. If you want to be on one of our teams, and you don't have optimism, then you better figure out how to get it.
I love that.
Yeah, isn't that great?
I knew I could ward off a cold.
There you go. I mean, so again, the research, the research is foreign, you know.
And there's a lot of research.
There really is. We're talking how to be more optimistic, pragmatically, today on Strategies. We'll be back.
And I'm bound to keep on riding. I've got one more.
There's a dark and a troubled side of life,
Oh, yeah.
but there's a bright and a sunny side too.
Sing it, baby. Sing it.
Though you meet with the darkness
I may sing it with you.
No.
Please. Welcome back. Welcome back to Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. PLPC, Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan. We are talking about, pragmatically increasing our optimism. You know, one of the things that we have is this incredible mind. And it's, we talk a lot about cognitions, but we've also got an imagination, And so you can make a movie. You can make a movie in your mind. I mean, think about this. Make a 30-second movie of your life in your mind. And so you're the producer. You choose and make that movie make it positive, and run that movie in your life.
The crowds are cheering. That's my movie.
Another thing you can do with your imagination, you can make you a little inner coach. I'm going to take Reuben, and I'm going to shrink him down, and I'm going to put him on my right shoulder. And when I get down, I'm going to have Reuben say, "You can do it."
A little mini me.
Little mini
How much does
Reuben.
that pay an hour?
We'll negotiate. We'll negotiate, Mini Reuben. So you can give yourself well done. And so I'm going to give you, as you go to vacation, well done, Carla. Well done.
Thank you very much.
And
I'm just darn proud to be here.
Yes, you are, and we're just we can't wait till you come back. So thank you, folks. Thank you for tuning in. We've been brought to you by CADA, by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacobs Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. My co-host Monday, Jerry Fodell from Resilient House. So, folks, if today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call for Reuben Wright and for PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist Dave McMillan. See you next time on Strategies for Living.
KEEL, KEEL, Shreveport.